okay. But if I take it to the main dealership, they're gonna charge me a few hundred.
Yeah, I had a Benz for a while, and
Well, it sounds like you thought.
I wanted, I got a buddy who's a mechanic, so he takes care of my cars. I said, let me develop a relationship with the local Mercedes dealers, they meet them.
Call the Glasswell Zoning Board of Adjustments regular business meeting to order September 19th, 2024. Terry, can you please read the opening statement?
Pursuant to the Open Publics Meeting Act, I hereby announce that adequate notice of this meeting, as required by said act, has been provided by adopting a schedule of regular monthly meetings for the year 2024, which schedule is posted on the Borough Hall Bulletin Board, mailed to the South Jersey Times, and filed with the Borough Clerk.
All right, salute to the flag. Everybody rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Noonan.
Here.
Mr. Alice.
Here.
Ms. Camiola. Here. Mr. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Santor.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Perner.
Here.
Ms. Wyman. Here. Mr. Cowan.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Lopez, Ms. Lafferty, and Mr. Casabun have all been excused for tonight.
Okay. Mr. Alice, can you swear in our one professional, please?
Well, sure, Mr. Cowan, just raise your right hand. You swear from any testimony you might give tonight is true and correct, the best knowledge and information, I believe?
I do.
Well, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna skip over the minutes, they're not prepared, so we'll go over them at the next meeting. All right, everybody's taking a look at the bills, do I have a motion to pay the bills?
Motion to pay the bills?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. Do we have any incoming or outgoing correspondence?
No.
Great. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items? All right, seeing nobody's here. We don't have any scheduled applications. Anything, nothing on the workshop committee?
No,
Oh, good.
they canceled it last week.
Oh. Mr. Alice, could you give us your
Oh,
report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, good to see everybody. We have a single item for consideration, that's Resolution 24-12. That was the use of bulk variance relief contingent upon site plan approval. ARG Glassboro Developers LLC, 1100 North Delsea Drive, Block 408.30, lots 1 and 1.01 for consideration.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Wyman.
Yes.
Mr. Perner.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Harvey. And Ms. Camiola.
I guess, okay. I'm not thrilled, but
All right, we don't have any old business, new business. Mr. Clark Pierpont would like to address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I wanted to take this opportunity to come and talk to the zoning board tonight. The governing body here in Glassboro has addressed a couple of issues in regards to our zoning code that I wanted to make you aware of in case you see applications coming in the future. The first thing I want to talk about, we adopted in July ordinance 24-20 of the ordinance of the Borough of Glassboro. And this ordinance changed two chapters. It changed our rental housing ordinance as well as our land use regulations. The rental housing end of it was merely definitions to allow for a new definition that's being created in the land use section. Really didn't change any of the rules in regards to renting of properties. The major changes came within our land use regulations, and they did a couple things. First of all, they defined a single-family dwelling as a dwelling with no more than 5 bedrooms. They also created the definition of a student housing rental house. And the definition of a student housing rental house is a rental property that has over 5 bedrooms. When they made that definition, we had to create an area where that particular definition would apply. So the governing body, with the help of Remington and Vernick and our engineers, we created an overlay district for student housing, rental housing within the zoning code. There are only certain areas where this particular section of the code can be applied. And I think your secretary distributed a map of the overlay zone. It's basically Carpenter Street across the street from Rowan University and a section of North Main Street from, I'm gonna say Main Street to up by the Sunoco station. Those areas primarily were chosen, Carpenter because of its proximity to Rowan University, and Main Street because that's where a lot of our larger student housing rental houses are. So we figured it wouldn't be too much of a change for the neighborhood. When we created this zone overlay, we created special standards for it that discuss how large the house can be, how much parking is required, and what those percentages of lot coverage can be, to make sure that not only could they could build a house that was large, 12, 20, I've seen 20-bedroom homes go up in Glassboro. But when they did that, they had to take into consideration parking. They had to meet the requirement for parking to make sure there was enough parking on the property. The way the standard's set up, you have to balance those percentages. So based on the size of your property, to provide enough parking, it may reduce how large your house can be. So our engineer, after we came up with these standards, actually put together samples taking properties within the zone to prove to not only the committee, but anybody who might challenge the ordinance, that it's possible to implement these zoning standards on a property in the zone and create a large student housing rental house. And if anybody's wondering why we named that, the tax assessor's office taxes properties, rental properties with more than 5 bedrooms, as student housing. So we use the same term as the tax assessor so that there's some consistency there. So that ordinance went into effect, and we spent a lot of time on it. We wanted to make sure that we did the work and the governing body understood why we were doing it. Obviously, it went in front of the planning board. At the planning board, Remington and Vernick prepared a justification report for the code as required by law. And I'm going to steal some of Doug's thunder here, and I'm going to go over a couple things in his justification report just so you know that we checked. All right? Certain things he has to look for. First of all, is it consistent with the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law? And it is, and he came up with probably 8 or 10 portions of the Municipal Land Use Law where it's consistent. Is it consistent with our master plan, the Borough of Glassboro's master plan? And he looked at two. He looked at the 2004 master plan. He found it to be consistent. And I'm going to quote one section that he has in here, and it's in his paragraph. It says, conflicts have occurred due to a variety of conditions, such as 4 or more young adults living together, creating a higher portion of cars per home, extended hours of activities due to studying, weekend parties, and a higher frequency of nuisance due to stereos, cars, voices, and other activities. To the extent zoning regulations can be adopted to avoid overuse of existing homes, this plan recommends these regulations be adopted. So we did that, in a way. He also looked at our natural resources conservation plan. It complies. I'm not going to get into those reasons. Our 2020 re-exam report of the master plan, a quote, Rowan University's rapid expansion in recent years has made these impacts more acute. Again, talking about the rental properties in the neighborhoods. The one that I find hits home the most for us, in 2021, the borough adopted a growth management plan. Penn Praxis from University of Pennsylvania put this plan together after 2 years of research, talking to the community, talking to the university, talking to the borough. Within that plan, they talk about the university and its growth. And it set certain goals. And goal 1.3 was to create residential districts that support student living and concentrate off-campus student rentals. So we're dead on with that. And strategy 1.3.3, to create student districts with appropriate zoning, it says to rewrite zoning requirements, including setbacks, parking minimums, height and lot coverage, et cetera, in student districts to promote density and student-oriented development. So we kind of hit home with that. So clearly, you know, the governing body and the committee that worked on this feel that we have a very strong ordinance. The reception, you know, as soon as this hit the books and got advertised, obviously, people reach out. They want to know what it is, especially some of our property owners that rent. And the feedback that I've gotten, and I've had conversations with many of them, some are okay, we can, you know, we'll work with it. Others have been very receptive to it. They understand why we're doing it. They think it makes sense. So I think we're going to be okay with that. The other thing, because we took this as a two-pronged approach when we were trying to figure out how to deal with these properties. And we deal with a lot of issues with these larger properties, from the parties they have, the mess they create. But I think everybody here recognizes one of the biggest ones is parking. You know, our current zoning code only allows for certain size driveways. It's not going to provide enough parking. The residential site improvement standards only required so much parking. So in addition to this ordinance, last year, and we filed in last December, but we talked about it last fall, Remington and Vernick, on behalf of the borough, put together an application to the Advisory Board for Residential Site Improvement Standards. And we wanted to create a special area of consideration for Glassboro. Avalon kind of did the same thing back in 2014 for some of their rental homes. And what this standard does, our request was, for every bedroom you have over 5, you have to provide an additional parking spot, period. That's what we wanted. Happy to report, as of last Thursday's meeting, and it took a year for them to meet. They kept canceling their meeting. After last Thursday, they adopted our special area, and they sent me the resolution of adoption today. So officially now, Glassboro has its own standard for residences, whether it be a single-family dwelling, duplex, townhome. If that dwelling has over 5 bedrooms, they have to provide additional parking. And it's one addition. So the standard is 3 for a 5-bedroom house, right? And
Yes.
so now, if you have a 6-bedroom house, it'll be 4. If you have a 7-bedroom house, you got to provide 5. It's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than what we have. And hopefully, it will curb or will help with when these buildings are built. We also have properties now that are pre-existing non-conforming, right? We have a lot of houses now that have 6 bedrooms. Looks like an ordinary rancher. You would think it was 3 bedrooms, but they put 3 bedrooms in the basement, stuffed one in an attic maybe. So we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming. So what this will allow us to do between the two of them is we can look at those properties with the property owner if they want about how they can provide additional parking to get that off the street. We have to work on our ordinances now because of the RSIS change in the Southern New Ordinance to allow other properties to increase driveway size. That's our next project. We'll be sitting down and talking about that, on how we want that done, because I'm sure none of you want to see 40-foot wide driveways in front yards. Neither do I. So we'll be addressing how this can be done. But I just wanted to let you know, I wanted to make you aware of this. This ordinance that we passed does not affect any application that you may have already pending for such a house, because that application was in prior to the adoption. So, you know, I know that particular person is aware of this ordinance, and you know, I've had conversation with them, but you know, it will not affect that application that you have pending. All right? And if anybody wants a copy of the ordinance to see it or has any other questions, you know, feel free to let me know.
I can just email it to them also.
Yes. Yep,
Thank you, Mr.
can always
Pierpont.
email.
Well, would it be burdensome, Terry, just to push it out to
No,
everybody?
not at all.
No.
No, just to-
It's, and Terry and I talked about that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Pierpont.
Thank you.
Since I don't see anybody from the public here, our next scheduled meeting is October 17th.
And in closing, I just want to say, everybody received a citizen leadership form. I just need that back
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Doc. First, second. Done.
Here, here. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.